The night the trouble started, 16-year-old Malik Carter was standing outside the old rural gas station off Highway 12, the only place in the small southern town of Millstone Ridge where the signal was strong enough for him to upload his physics homework, never imagining that a pack of men who still clung to the shadows of a dying racist clan had been watching him all week, misreading his presence, mistaking his confidence for arrogance, and mistaking his silence for weakness, completely unaware that Malik was the son of a man whose name they should have feared more than the law, more than the stormy night above, more than the ghosts of their hateful ancestors. Dereber Carter, a legendary Navy SEAL whose classified missions were whispered about in bars, briefing rooms, and war zones. Malik didn't brag about his dad, didn't talk about the things he'd seen growing up on military bases around the world, didn't mention that he'd been trained since age 10 in survival drills, hand-to-hand reaction blocks, threat assessment, and situational awareness, because Doris Carter raised him to be humble, disciplined, observant, and restrained, the kind of restraint Malik had been clinging to for weeks ever since he and his dad had moved to Millstone Ridge after Darius retired, trying to give Malik a quieter life in a place his late mother once called safe before the town changed, before the wrong people took root. That night, Malik stood under the flickering light of the gas station canopy, uploading a massive PDF, minding his own business, wearing his headphones and humming to a Kendrick Lamar track when the rumble of 3 mud-stained pickup trucks suddenly slowed on the road, crawling like predators circling prey, engines, low lights, dim tires, crackling over gravel until they stopped just beyond the gas station's exit lane. Malik felt something tighten in his spine, that subtle shift in the air his father had trained him to respect, so he paused his music, slid off one headphone, and listened. A long silence pressed against the night, then came the door slams, slow, drawn out, like declarations. Malik glanced over and recognized the group from school rumors and cafeteria whispers. Trent Hargrove, the 19-year-old dropout with a history of fights, his cousin Wade, heavy-set and slow-brained, a wiry redneck nicknamed Stitch because of the jagged scar across his face, and 2 older men Malik had never seen but instantly recognized, the type drifters carrying old hatred in their skin like tattoos. They fanned out around him, pretending to browse the soda machines, pretending not to stare, but Malik noticed the way their boots angled toward him, the way their shoulders turned in alignment, the way Trent cracked his knuckles like a man preparing for a show. Malik could have walked away, could have called his dad, but his file upload was at 98%, and his father had always said, "Never run just because someone hopes you will." Wade approached first with the kind of swagger that tries to hide insecurity, nudging Malik's backpack with his boot and saying something about outsiders coming into their town. Malik ignored him and checked his phone, which only irritated Wade more, prompting him to shove the backpack again and mutter a slur under his breath, the kind of word that ISN spoken accidentally but inherited like a family heirloom of hate. Malik inhaled, slowly reminded himself of every discipline drill his father had hammered into him. Control your breath, lower your pulse, never show fear, never react first. But Trent wasn't interested in calm or restraint. Trent wanted fear, wanted power, wanted to feel like the king of a world that was shrinking around him as the old racist clan he idolized lost members, lost territory, lost relevance, and tonight Trent believed he'd found the perfect target to prove himself. Malik finally raised his eyes and said, "Move," not loudly, not threateningly, but with a tone that carried the confidence of someone who had nothing to prove, which only enraged Trent further. The group tightened in around Malik, and Stitch whispered something about teaching lessons, and Wade grabbed Malik's shoulder, fingers digging into the fabric, expecting him to flinch. Malik didn't. Instead, he shifted his weight the way his father taught him, small, subtle, deliberate, and Wade stumbled a half-step backward, startled. Trent stepped forward, blocking the only exit between Malik and the road, while one of the older men, grizzled and sunburned, leaned against the gas pump like he owned it, spitting a thick line of tobacco juice near Malik's shoe and saying, "Boy, you in the wrong place." Malik wanted to leave, but the upload hit 100% that second, and something about the timing made him straighten just enough to meet Trent's stare. Trent grinned, a crooked, mean grin, and said, "He thinks he's tough." And before Malik could respond, Wade lunged at him, clumsy, arms wide. Malik slipped aside effortlessly, not out of fear, but out of training, letting Wade crash into the trash bin with a loud clang, provoking laughter from the others. Embarrassment made Wade savage. He charged again, but this time Trent barked, "Stop," and Wade froze, breathing hard. Trent stepped closer to Malik, eyes narrow. "Where you learn moves like that?" he asked. Malik didn't answer. Trent sneered. "Bet your daddy teaches you how to run." Malik's jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. "What's his name?" Trent demanded. Malik didn't speak, because saying his father's name out loud tended to change the energy of any room, and he didn't owe these men anything. Trent shoved him hard, but Malik stayed balanced. Stitch pulled out his phone, recording, muttering, "This gonna look good," and that's when Malik realized this wasn't random intimidation. This was initiation. These men were trying to earn status in the remnants of the old racist clan they worshipped, a group that once terrorized the outskirts of town decades before, trying to revive its influence by filming acts of intimidation and violence to circulate privately among members. Malik felt something dark coil around the moment, the kind of tension that happens seconds before violence ignites. Trent stepped even closer, breath hot with tobacco and cheap beer. "Tell me your daddy's name," Malik finally spoke, not because he wanted to, but because the air crackled too dangerously. "Darius Carter." Stitch stopped recording for a heartbeat. The older men exchanged glances. Trent scoffed as if unimpressed, not recognizing the name yet, but the oldest man, the one leaning on the pump, froze, eyes narrowing with dawning recognition. "Carter?" he repeated slowly. Not the Carter from—" Malik didn't have time to confirm. Trent shoved the old man aside and barked, "Ain't nobody care who his daddy is?" But the old man stepped forward, voice harsh. "Boy, if that's Darius Carter's son, y'all need to back off right now." Trent snapped, "You scared of some washed-up soldier?" The old man stared at Malik like he was staring at a live grenade. "Son, your daddy wouldn't be that Carter, would he?" Trent rolled his eyes. Malik remained silent. The old man cursed under his breath. "You idiots picked the wrong kid." Trent spat. "Ain't no wrong kid," and shoved Malik hard enough that Malik instinctively blocked, catching Trent's arm, twisting just slightly, not enough to injure, but enough that Trent's knees buckled for a second. The entire group erupted. Wade lunged. Stitch grabbed Malik's hoodie. The older man shouted, "Stop!" And in a flash of motion, Malik's training took over, a blur of instinct, balance, and precision that allowed him to slip free, duck under Wade's arms, twist away from Stitch, and put 5 feet of space between himself and the attackers. No strikes, no punches, nothing that could escalate, only clean evasions. The kind his father drilled for situations where the law, optics, and survival all mattered. Malik didn't want to fight. He wanted to go home. But Trent saw the evasions as humiliation, saw Malik's skill as a challenge, saw the old man's sudden fear as disrespect, and with a snarl he reached into his jacket and pulled something Malik had been dreading, a metal pipe wrapped in tape. Wade grabbed a chain from the truck bed. Stitch cracked his knuckles like a man who'd been waiting to spill blood. Malik exhaled once. The situation crossed a line. His father's rules were clear: retreat if possible, defend if necessary, escape always. Malik scanned the environment, the angles, the exits, the nearest light, distances, timing, how many steps to the road, how many seconds before the men closed in, and then Trent lifted the pipe. Malik braced, and then headlights flooded the entire scene. A black SUV rolled into the gas station lot with the slow, deliberate confidence of someone who feared nothing. The driver's door opened. Heavy boots hit pavement, and Malik's heart unclenched as the silhouette stepped into view, tall, broad-shouldered, posture carved from steel. Darius Reaper Carter. And he had heard everything. Chapter 2 will follow automatically in the next message. Darius Carter didn't shout, didn't run, didn't posture. He simply stepped into the harsh glow of the gas station lights with the quiet, lethal calm of a man who had survived deserts, oceans, ambushes, and operations no government would ever publicly admit existed. And for the first time that night, Trent and his crew hesitated, their bravado flickering as Darius' shadow stretched across the pavement, like something alive, like something ancient, like something that had seen men die and never flinched. Malik felt a wave of conflicting emotions, relief, guilt, shame for having hoped his father wouldn't see him in this danger, and a strange anger at himself for being in this situation at all. But Darius didn't look at Malik with disappointment. He looked at him with an intensity that said, "I heard everything, and I will handle this with precision." The older racist, the one who recognized the Carter name, whispered, "Oh hell," under his breath and took 2 steps back, muttering frantically to Wade, "We gotta go now. But Trent, drunk on arrogance and pride, mistook Darius' silence for weakness, stepping forward with the pipe still raised and barking, "This ain't your business. Old man, take your little boy and get gone." Darius didn't blink. Lower, the weapon. 4 words, nothing more. But those 4 words carried a weight Trent wasn't equipped to interpret. A weight forged in classified missions, hostage rescues, black site infiltrations, and kill or be killed nights under foreign stars. Trent scoffed loudly, trying to prove he wasn't scared even though his hands trembled. Or what? He spat. Malik shifted, slightly recognizing the moment his father was calculating the trajectory of every possible outcome. Who would reach who, first weapon would swing, whether Malik was in the line of danger where the cameras were where the exits, or what the law would see how to neutralize threats without escalation. Darius never entered a situation blind. Trent took another step, pipe raised, and Darius finally moved slowly, deliberately, stepping between Malik and the attackers with a calm that bordered on terrifying. He didn't pull a weapon. He didn't raise his hands. He simply said, "This will end now." Stitch laughed, shaky and high-pitched. "You think you scaring somebody?" Wade cracked the chain against his palm, mumbling, "Let's jump in, 2 old man ain't gonna stop nobody." The older racist snapped, "You idiots don't understand. This is Darius Carter." But Trent shoved him backward. "I don't care if he's the Pope." Malik could feel the tension coiling tighter and tighter, that same electric snapping in the air that precedes violence. Darius tilted his head slightly, as if studying insects. "My son tried to walk away," he said, voice low. "He gave you room. He gave you dignity. You chose cowardice." Trent lunged, pipe swinging downward in a sloppy arc, fueled more by ego than skill. But that was the last mistake he made that night. Darius stepped inside the swing with flawless timing, grabbed Trent's wrist, twisted, and the pipe clattered to the pavement before Trent even realized he'd lost it. Darius struck him once open palm, chest level, sending Trent stumbling backwards 6 feet as if propelled by a truck. Wade roared and charged with the chain, but Darius sidestepped, hooked Wade's ankle with a sweep so subtle Malik barely saw it, and Wade crashed onto the ground, chain skidding across concrete. Stitch swung wildly, aiming at Darius' head, but Darius grabbed his arm, mid-swing locked his elbow and guided him downward with surgical brutality until Stitch was pinned on the hood of the pickup truck, gasping from the pressure on his spine. The older racists didn't move. They stood frozen, realizing they were witnessing the controlled violence of someone who had defeated trained militants, insurgents, and professional killers. Malik watched in awe, grateful, shaken, and deeply aware of just how much his father had held back his entire life. The entire fight lasted 9 seconds. 9 seconds, and the men who tried to attack Malik were on the ground, groaning, trembling, stunned into silence. Darius stood over them, breathing steady, eyes cold. "You picked the wrong family," he said. Trent wheezed something like, "This ain't over," but his voice cracked with fear. Darius lowered himself to Trent's level, staring directly into his eyes. "Before you speak again," he said evenly, "understand this. I know your names. I know your families. I know the history of the group you're trying to revive. You think you're part of a legacy?" He leaned closer. I've dismantled real organizations. Don't play soldier with men who have seen war. Trent swallowed hard, bravado breaking. Darius looked at Malik. Get in the car. Malik obeyed instantly, heart pounding. The moment Darius started walking back toward the SUV, Trent hissed to the others. We ain't letting this go. We'll get them both. No man embarrasses us like that. The older racist grabbed him by the shirt. Stop talking. You don't know what you just stirred up. But Trent yanked free, ego overriding sanity. We're gonna make him pay. Darius paused mid-step, having heard everything because Darius always heard everything. He turned his head slightly, just enough for Trent to see the profile of a man who did not take threats lightly. If you come after my son again, Darius said quietly, you will pray for the police to find you before I do. Then he got into the SUV. Silence swallowed the gas station. Malik stared at his father, barely able to breathe. Dad, I had it under control. No, you didn't, Darius said, not harshly, but truthfully. And that's not your fault. This town failed you, not the other way around, Malik swallowed. Are they going to come back? Darius exhaled slowly, staring out the windshield. Yes, he said. Men like that don't walk away from humiliation. They escalate. Malik's stomach twisted. So what do we do? Darius finally looked at his son, eyes firm, steady, uncheckable. We prepare, he said. Because this is no longer a misunderstanding. This is a war they think they want. The SUV pulled onto the road, taillights disappearing into the dark pine forest lining Millstone Ridge. None of them noticed the truck headlights that turned on moments after they left. None of them saw the second group of men watching from deeper in the shadows. Men older, angrier, more committed, the remnants of the true clan Trent idolized. One of them lit a cigarette and muttered, "So Carter's back." Another cracked his knuckles. Then it's time we finish what started years ago. And with that, the real danger awakened. Chapter 3 will follow in the next message.